Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special extra episode of the Never Gets Old podcast. I was asked by Cameron Sullivan to be on his podcast called, let me make sure I get it right, the Jacked Up Review Show podcast. We have a chat about basically going over the whole franchise of Stargate, the movie, Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, all of it. Just that's his show. He wants to review a big chunk of stuff. And I thought it would be fun just to share, to help promote his show. But also, since we're getting close to the 100th episode, I thought we'd give you a little bonus episode of this. I didn't bother to put it on the MacGyver podcast because we talk about that stuff all the time. But here's a little snippet. And if you enjoy this, please check out the MacGyver podcast, MacGyver SG-1 audio series, and the Jacked Up Review Show podcast. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Enjoy.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
My name is Ichabod Crane.
Name's MacGyver. Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
I am Batman!
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
So there's this man, he has a time machine. Up and down history he goes, zip, 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 getting into scrapes.
For years, and maybe more than that, right, Mac? But how long has it been? Has it been 6, 7 years ago?
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Hey, now wait a minute. Now wait just a minute.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day.
I've got something for you.
Oh, merci, Sonor.
Just one more thing, sir.
Oh boy.
Just like that. Bing, bang, boom.
At this point, I'd settle for the boom.
They'd love it here, don't you think?
This is what I'm saying.
And by the way, where is your podcast? Tell everybody that's here.
Welcome to the Never Gets Old podcast. The podcast of all we love in TV, movies, music, and comics. With your hosts, Mac Jackson and Nathan Shell. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Facebook, and YouTube. Donations at paypal.com, at macwjackson@comcast.net.
Listen to my chapin songs. DJ saying that they're too long. His guitar may be silenced, but his soul goes on and on. On again, on again. His stories were like us, a beginning and an end, alone again. Now I listen in my room, cats in the cradle in the...
So, introducing from the Never Gets Old podcast and numerous other Stargate, SG-1, and MacGyver casts, Mac W. Jackson.
Ooh, that was nice.
I'm so proud of it. Now, I am in the wrong. I have totally mixed up your casts with the Gate cast, which would also cover a lot of...
Sure, a lot of Stargate.
But it also even went a league further and covered Legend, which was an earlier Richard Dean Anderson show as well. The one that
was the one between MacGyver and SG-1. Yeah. And it was a passion project, but unfortunately, it was doomed to fail from the beginning, no matter how good it was.
Right. UPN just had very
yeah.
crappy advertising. Michael Piller and the Star Trek guys were too busy with their main shows that they couldn't give it the amount of same effort. So,
and not only that, like I didn't get UPN. Like everybody, I remember articles that I would collect.
TV
would
guide.
say, yeah, well, they'd say, hey, for all 4, cities that get to see UPN, please watch Legend because it's really good.
Right.
Like nothing was going to survive on that network, unfortunately.
Well, and they were part of the other affiliates, and if you didn't get a Paramount affiliate in your city, so then what do?
Exactly.
Same thing with Fox and NBC. You know, there's so many in-between antenna channels that are now just often part of an average person's cable network, but they don't realize some people are, much like radio, they're still only going on what's, you know, free TV, essentially. You know?
Exactly. Well, you know, and it's funny, too, because I'm always of two minds, because, yes, I would have liked more Legend. But, you know, if Legend didn't end, he wouldn't have been snagged for Stargate SG-1.
I'm with you, because, I mean, he did that other TV pilot by Tom Fontana of St. Elsewhere and Oz fame.
It was supposed to be Firehouse, I think. It went through a couple different names.
It was a really emotional, really good movie, and he dies at the end of the pilot. And so I guess...
Have you watched it? You've seen it?
I have. It's on YouTube, but it was one of those...
Right.
Despite the great cast, I can see why it didn't get picked up. They're like,
without a doubt. Oh, it was... You know what it was for me? I'll tell you. I remember being in college when they were filming it, and I remember going through a whole bunch of different names. It was going to become, you know, Fire 90265 and then I guess they finally said, all right, it's going to be called Firehouse. And then they went, great. And then it didn't get picked up. Well, I guess they wanted to put something out in Japan. And so they slapped together, like he didn't film, as you saw, he didn't film a death scene because he wasn't supposed to die. He was supposed to be the lead.
Right.
And I guess whoever was in charge of it, they go, well, we got to wrap this up. What about the guy who went off to be the hero? Oh, no, let's just kill him. What the? Wow. So, you know.
To make it even more interesting, it's kind of like a more realistic, plausible version as opposed to the Hollywoodized type movie like, you know, Backdraft. You know, it's like, it's kind of a similar thing. And it also is one of those, it's really blurring the line between, you know, a PG-13, you know, NBC type crime show and a Showtime type show, because there's a few F-bombs and brief nudity, but at the same time, it could have easily been some kind of Law and Order NYPD Blue type show. So it's like,
I think it was I think that was their inspiration with the whole, well, NYPD Blue gets a lot of ratings, so let's show a butt scene right here. And, you know, like you said, I watched it on YouTube because, well, it's Richard Dean Anderson. I'm going to watch it. And I went, ooh, good. I get to see that. Whoa, that was unexpected. Okay.
Yeah. And what did the rest of the season had been? Who killed him? You know, would they pulled a JR in Dallas? But like you say, it's worth watching. And it's actually definitely one of his better performances because he's just playing a guy trying to maintain order in a very sexist and bigoted fire station. And at the same time, like you say, is like it, you know, he'd already was doing Stargate, you know, it was inevitable. They were going to have to.
Well, that was, I'll tell you, Stargate came out, SG-1 was in 97, and this pilot was filmed in 93, 94.
Oh, okay.
So,
there you go.
Yeah, he had planned on being part of that. Like, and you're right, the rest of the cast is, most of it is pretty amazing when you see who is part of it.
Dean Winters, Eddie Falco, who also was on the bigger stuff, and it's just like, they pretty much went to the Homicide family after that. And
But, yeah, you know, and you could tell they were setting up stuff with his ex-wife because, again, he wasn't supposed to die. It was supposed to be, you know, him trying to get back in her good graces. But through the whole thing, I'm thinking, okay, let's fast forward through the Beast story. Let's get back to him. You know, like, I don't care about the punk mouth rookie going into, like, a strip club or whatever his deal was.
Right.
You know?
It's setting too much up. So I guess it was too ambitious. Yeah, it's the best way to put it. And, I mean, I think that's why this show that we're about to tackle just blew everyone's mind because, you know, Richard Dean wasn't going to become even remotely attempt a movie career.
He could have actually, you know, he
could have, but I'm just saying he pretty much was like, okay, I'm stuck doing MacGyver, so I'm going to do some other TV type work.
Yeah, his philosophy basically was, I could go to movies, but he sees it the way I do too. I always find TV to be much more
fleshed out.
Well, much more fleshed out, and you're getting more. Everybody thinks back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, well, you have to make the transfer to movies. No, you don't, because he liked a steady paycheck and liked the character arc, which you can't do in 2 hours.
Exactly. And,
you know,
everybody at that time was just too competitive. Everybody had to be a Planet Hollywood star, or you had to be just, you know, again, do the Denzel Washington and St. Elsewhere. It's like you're a heartthrob, you're a good actor there. Now you got to go and conquer, Oscar lane as opposed to the Emmys. But, at that point, like you say, the awards have to come naturally. And, this show is definitely one of the few where it's like it just won awards for editing and effects.
Oh,
but everyone loved the story. So that's why it lasted 10 years. And
the characters. I mean, if you want to get into it with SG-1, I of course jumped on. I don't know when you started watching, but I didn't have Showtime. So for the first 5 seasons, it was Showtime.
I was on the same boat as you. I had bootleg cable, so I only got Sci-Fi Channel. But it was interesting. Then I went back. I saw the movie, and I know a lot of people really liked it. What was your take on it?
Okay, well, I
couldn't get into it, and
well, here's why. My setup was they were showing it for whatever deal they had a year after a season premiered. Like if you were watching season 2 on Showtime, you could watch season 1 on your local cable. It's a great, amazing deal. Well, it was a Sunday night, I think, and they're like, "We're gonna start showing SG-1." I don't have to. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, coincidentally, I don't know if this was on purpose or not. They had decided on a different channel to show the Stargate movie. So I thought, great. I sat down. I watched the Stargate movie. And I'll sum it up like this. I remember my friend going to see it and saying, it's like Indiana Jones and Star Wars put together. Well, no, it really isn't.
Right. They had all these comparisons. Alien, 2001. I'm like, really only references in the Foley retrospective art design, but that's it.
And the real, okay, for me, it feels like it's a great pilot for a TV show. The movie is not. It's very dragged out. It's a lot of conversation sitting in the sand. How are we going to get home, which is supposed to be the big thing. And, you got 2 hours of him sitting with villagers, and Daniel was supposed to be more of the focus, I guess, with the original writers because they had planned a trilogy.
I would have accepted James Spader as that, but at the same time, I became so attached to Michael Shank's portrayal of Dr. Jackson.
Without a doubt, yes.
And it's really, some people like to do a comparison kind of like The Odd Couple, and I'm like, no, I don't think it's even like that, because as good as Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau are, we accepted the TV version just because they felt natural. More natural because we didn't know who they were prior to that. And the same thing here is like, I don't have a problem with Kurt Russell, but he's
Spader.
Flat. Well, exactly. There wasn't anything to his character like with Snake Plissken or Tango and Cash. So with that, it's like Spader already admitted he did the movie just because it was an easy paycheck. So it's just like, I felt really nothing from that whole film. And I try to give it credit where it is. I know a lot of people discovered it because it was on TBS every other day. And like you say, at that point, Stargate, within its first few years, started getting sold to all the Fox affiliates and rerun there. So that's why Showtime dumped it, because they felt we're losing money. So as a brief setup for everybody, it follows the adventures of, Jack O'Neill, 2 L's, not 1.
That's right.
Played by Richard Dean Anderson, who in many times will break on rare occasion the fourth wall and make a MacGyver reference or in some other Star Trek or Star Wars type punch, and follows Dr. Jackson, played by Michael Shanks, Sam, played by Amanda Tapping, and alien warrior and ally Tulk, played by Christopher Judge. And again, it's part exploration show, part military, aliens, Babylon 5 type show, and very much it's got various, Egyptian folklore, Indiana Jones type adventure, and just other mind-blowing, just occasional philosophy, for lack of a better description. It has lasted 10 years, and we'll briefly cover the spinoffs as well.
Yeah. See, here, it's funny when anybody tries to sum up what Stargate is.
It's really hard.
You really can't compare it to anything. And I understand I'm biased, but it's earned because
absolutely.
I always tell people I am a really, really tough critic when it comes to music, TV, anything.
It's got to grab you. It's got to
Well, yeah, it has to prove itself.
Exactly.
And not only has Stargate, let me tell you, as I was saying, I was going to watch it because it was Richard Dean Anderson. Richard Dean Anderson is my idol, thus the MacGyver podcast and the MacGyver SG-1 audio series that I do and write. But I was going to watch anything. I mean, he could read the phone book and I'd watch him do that. It's like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know?
At that point, he was kind of from the same kind of Scott Bakula, TV star school where many people knew and admired him. And really,
just as a person, a good human being. Everything you see in MacGyver is that guy.
Well, exactly it. And you hear about all the stuff, that he's done. Like he liked to go skiing. They would work that in the show. He was a single father, so they work in the divorce and how he's kind of a hippie, and they work in that stuff. And it's just like, I like you even more, dude, because I'm not getting any real sense of an ego. I'm getting more of a let's party till we can't party anymore.
And one of the things that everybody who comes on the podcasts that has worked with him always said, he was the reason that it lasted 7 seasons and could have gone longer, but they decided to end when they felt like it as opposed to being told. So I mean, they went, you know what? Who's MacGyver when they started? They said, well, it's a guy who can create something out of nothing, realistically, with real science and all. But after that, they modeled everything else after Richard Dean Anderson, his likes, his dislikes, his history, where he grew up. And those people, those same people then moved over to SG-1. So they call him up and they said, we'd like you to do this show. Have you seen the movie? So he watches the movie and he comes back and he goes, I love the idea of it. His quote is, I'm much more of an Indiana Jones guy than a sci-fi guy.
Right.
But if I'm allowed, I'll do it if I'm allowed to be me and ad-lib. I can't do the straight, Kurt Russell, I'm military cliche.
And he's a way more humorous. It kind of makes sense. He does kind of from the Harrison Ford kind of school of thought, if that makes sense. In that he likes to joke around and show emotion, but it's more earned as opposed to, I must be monotone, I must be very, deep voiced and not.
And he's got that, he's got my sense of humor that I love, where it's sarcastic.
Yeah.
But he's not going, I'm making a silly face, haha. No. He's saying something with a straight face, but it's ridiculous and absurd. Even if he's the only one laughing, that makes it worth it. I so connect with that.
Well, exactly. And I see what you mean, whereas like this does change the Vancouver, Canadian TV and film industry. But like you say, they still have to use this as their model when they do something like a Dark Matter or another X-Files type show, because like you say, you see all these actors, all these visual effects people, they pretty much have worked on all those shows, but they bring a different sense to that. And here, they wanted to do a spectacle every week. They wanted to have a battle. They wanted to have some new magical orb that they must retrieve.
A self-contained story that feels like a 2-hour movie.
And the creators, they had already come off the Outer Limits TV show, just phenomenal cast and crew. And like Richard Dean Anderson, they intended a family show, and Showtime, of course, was like, well, we can only, guarantee pay-per-view and other people purchasing it if there's tits. And it's like, after that, I'm glad that they told them to shove it and said, please stop giving us notes about how you want to see some poon and language and gore. And
they re-edited, I don't know if you knew, but
I did.
Brad Wright did it, and it's great.
It makes the character way more likable, because in there, he's just, a dick, and it's hard to see that you would do a 10-season order over this,
Well, it's funny, too, because, like I said, I started to watch it because of Richard Dean Anderson, but I will say the rest of the cast is perfect. You love everybody because, and I don't just mean like, oh, I like that character. I like the actor and their ability to be these characters. Like you said, Michael Shanks. When one of the times I saw Michael Shanks, he was up on stage at a convention, and this girl, you'll love this. She stands up, she goes, I have a question. He goes, oh, okay. And he's very sweet and wonderful to people. She goes, How hard was it for you to do the transfer from the when you were in the movie to then? Were you happy that you then got the TV show, and the whole audience goes, "Oh God," and he very sweetly says, "Oh, sweetie, that was not me. I was not in the movie." She's like, "No, I just saw the movie." Yeah, that wasn't me, which is a great compliment to his acting ability.
Well, and it really did torque me off for a while how, so many people started rumors about him being difficult. And it's like, all he wanted to do was, after the first 5 years, just attempt a movie career, and then it didn't work out, so he came back. Right. But a rumor kept going around throughout forums that he was difficult, he was a prick. And it's like, no, he's fine. He's just doing what every actor does, where they try to challenge themselves after a while. And then he realized, well,
that didn't work.
That's not panning out. Can I at least bring my actress wife, Lexa Doig, here to join the cast? And so I think what this show also does good is, much like some of the Law and Order shows, it does so good at it doesn't have to ever explain why certain people aren't missing. They always have one line of dialogue or some other implication that people are busy working around on another away team mission.
Which was, I'll tell you, we're going to be jumping back and forth, I know, but I always say the first 8 seasons are perfect. After that, the last 2, and it's not just because Richard Dean Anderson was not in front of the camera. It was because he wasn't behind the camera, because he was a producer. So he got to say, we can't do that, or wait, we have to address this. Those little nuggets where they lay pipe, as they say, where, you're going to pay this off down the road. He would make sure, don't forget, we mentioned this, we have to, and once he wasn't there, they didn't do those little lines of dialogue that you were talking about, or they didn't, So a lot of people like the last 2 seasons.
I love it all, but I can't blame you. When I first saw that and wasn't a religious viewer, would only see reruns, I was definitely disconnected from those the most, because they were going into homage parodyville.
Exactly. And in hindsight, it was supposed to be Robert Cooper took over once Richard Dean Anderson left.
He was the
one
head
of the
writer.
producers too.
Yeah.
And he said, well, this is my show now, and I'm going to change it to Stargate Command. Well, they talked him out of it because they wanted to get the longest running sci-fi show by 200 episodes.
Right. Syndication was different.
Right. But 2 months after that, Smallville beat them anyway. So in hindsight, I wish there was a disconnect. I wish they had called those last 2 seasons Stargate Command, because that way SG-1 wouldn't be as tarnished as it is.
I see what you mean. I mean, overall, I just loved Toke and Sam just so much that, like you say, they could have retitled it. I guess the main deal, I think that it's held up, and Michael Shanks has said in interviews he's surprised that so many people still know about it, since it hasn't been syndicated in quite a while. It's just the DVD and Blu-ray prices are always through the roof. You watch them on Amazon and other things, and they're uninterrupted. Like, absolutely, the minute they went
flawless
to home video, and it's hard to believe that was filmed back when it was filmed, because there's very few blemishes or anything. It's just incredibly photographed. And, And but I think they said if you read some of like the older DVD collectibles, they even tell you how many people are on the spaceships, and Tilk has like the largest body count out of all of them. That's before Jackson and Sam start planning, dynamite on every ship, and Richard Dean. Jack opens up the one vault that encapsulates all the other Tok'ra and Gaul ships. But yeah, it's just like, basically they made it to where it's like they re-edited it, and they took out some of the other little tidbits that they had to have for network stuff, and just merged all the 2-parters into one big giant 2-hour episodes. But yeah, there's never any fade to black or
cuts where you could tell, that's where a commercial went.
Right. None of those awkward things. And
flawless.
They weren't a music-based show, so they never had to substitute any music artists.
That's true. It's funny the way my view of it. Whenever I talk to anybody about Stargate, and I just did this on Twitter the other day. I was without trying, I convinced them she wrote and said, my husband's been after me to watch this for the longest time.
Oh my God.
And because of your tweet to me, I'm now going to try it because I've never seen someone push so hard for a show. And I said, it's not like I have money invested. It's just that good that I want everybody to experience that level of perfection like I have. Because
I'm the same way. Is this
I'm sure you agree. Now everything else is judged by that because that is the height. Everything else that you're going to watch for the rest of your life, you're like, yeah, it was good. It wasn't SG-1 good.
Right. And I mean, this is a one-of-a-kind show in that, aside from changing how shows are done, and I could even say it's more X-Files than the X-Files, because, I mean, it has a pretty wicked yet easy-to-follow, government conspiracy. It's even a part spy show at times. I will admit.
They dabble into everything.
Yeah. And, I mean, it helped that these guys were all comfortable with each other. A lot of the producers that worked with Amanda Tapping and Shanks on, Outer Limits. Christopher Judge first made his first TV appearance on MacGyver as like a henchman of the week. So everybody was
it was Live and Learn, and the episode was called Live and Learn, and he was a mouthy football player.
Oh, that's who it was. Okay.
And MacGyver has to flip him to like prove physics.
Okay.
That's okay.
I forgot what he actually was doing, but I just remember they were wrestling, and so I was like, oh shit, so he's a henchman. But yeah, I'm due for a MacGyver rewatch. That
oh yeah, that's another. I mean, obviously I know I'm partial, but I'm watching it with my family, so they would tell me if it didn't hold up, and that's another perfect show because of Richard Dean Anderson and everybody involved, where it wasn't about their personal egos. It was about what is the end product. So the writers who've been on with me have said we tried to do basically an hour-long movie, self-contained. That way anybody can jump in at any time and feel rewarded by the end of it. You're not.
It really gives every kind of audience what you want. Those who want something emotional, you'll get it from Sam and companies. Those who want something very funny, Tilk is full of one-liners, and that's even before having Indeed,
And he even starts off. Here's what I tell everybody when they're about to dive into Stargate. Okay,
right.
I say the first season is basically laying the foundation, where a lot of the episodes are the Star Trek. We're going through the gate, we're dealing with these people, and by the end of the episode, we're going back home. Okay, and I remember being me, loving Richard Dean Anderson, watching it saying, boy, they better do something different, otherwise I'm only going to be watching this because of Richard Dean Anderson.
Right.
Well, by the end of that first season, they turn everything on its head. And, they have the alternate realities. Yeah. Well, it's the alternate, reality. And, oh, by the way, the trouble that you caused in the movie, well, now they're sending two motherships directly to Earth, and the Stargate is getting shut down because of politics. You're like, oh, man. And then from there,
they're doing what every good sci-fi or even crime show does. Is like there's a bureaucrat who's going to close down your system. You better give them, the clock is ticking, so make the mission count. And
what happened after that first season, by the end, everything after that built off of that. There's, they never slid backwards. They laid foundations. They might say, oh, we're working on, X. Well, X doesn't pay off. Not that you cared, but when you see it in like the third season, you go, oh, that's what they talked about, last season, which was a throwaway line, or so you think.
Right.
And it's just so perfectly crafted from a writing perspective.
They definitely outlined it. They did not make this up as they went along. They weren't relying on the actors to sell it. They were also, there's action for the guys who could give less of a crap. There's a lot of other just cool art direction that the girls might like, and there's, people who just like, again, just all kinds of elements are just going to dig this show because, like you say, it is almost like the whole Egyptian temples is like, it's going to take a bunch of archaeologists to layer out each detail and make it that refined and cool.
And at no point do they go, look it, we know how to phone in a Stargate episode. No. The writers, producers, they were excited. They're like, oh, what if there's a way that we can make them have superpowers? Oh, and there's one called Upgrades, where the Tok'ra.
That was a great episode,
right? And within that, which would have been enough, But within that, you have the Jack-Sam dynamic where they know they love each other, but because of the military, they can't officially say anything.
Yeah.
But
and
because of that episode, for the next couple, there's one called Divide and Conquer, which came about after that one, where they have to kind of say in front of people, you know, I care about her much more than I'm supposed to.
There's that. There's other gripping stuff that throws you for 180, but it's earned. And there's even other people from each other's past, and they don't necessarily know how to always say, you know, again, I respect you, I forgive you. There's sometimes then it just becomes, wait, no, don't, you know, sacrifice yourself for me. And there's a lot of cool one episode guest stars who are awesome. And it makes sense why they get promoted because, you know, they're only at the base. I like how on occasion they have to stop Tilk from leaving the base when he gets taken over by an alien entity. I like how Daniel has to, again, you know, regenerate. And season 4, I don't feel has dated as well for me because there's some filler episodes, but like you say, they're still the same around, you know, that's when they...
Now you got me curious.
I just thought that there were a few just kind of, they were accepting... I don't think they were spoiled, and I don't think they phoned in an episode, but I just thought there were some that weren't as dated as well.
I wonder, do you recall any detail?
There was one when they go after the Wally guy, the computer tech, and they use a lot of very annoying, like, slow motion that's just so 90s.
I'm trying to think of which one you mean. The computer guy.
The bald. He's now on White Collar.
Martin. The character's name was he comes back a couple times actually.
He does, and I just remember when the first episodes, season 4 still has some worthwhile ones, and they just didn't have as necessarily some of my. They were kind of my least favorite alternate realities.
Isn't that funny? Okay,
but it's still worth seeing.
Well, you know what? They did a lot of. They started to do, which I don't mind. I thought it was refreshing, but that was one of the first ones where they did an Earth-based episode. So there's no Stargate per se. Maybe that was what.
I'll still watch them.
Yeah.
I'll still marathon all of these episodes. But like you say, this isn't afraid to be different. It's people are binge watching it, realizing, hey, you know, I don't have to go to the theaters and watch the biggest epic. It's all here on my, you know, small screen TV. And
honest to God, because I'm telling you, I watch them with my family. So the kids, my wife hasn't seen them in years. I know them by heart, but I don't care. My
you
kids
can show them the DVD edit of the pilot, so everyone's happy.
Exactly.
And all the rest of the stuff, it's going to grow on you eventually because there's some
But it's like seeing having it be watched for the very first time through my children's eyes, who are old enough to get it, and my wife, and they'll say when it's over, "Wow, give me an episode." That's what they say. They go, "Wow,
right?
That felt like a movie." And I'm like, and they go, "That was only an hour. So much happened within that hour." I'm like, "I know. Welcome to Stargate."
To make it even better, I mean, it helped that when it did the other shows, it wasn't relying on complete knowledge of the other ones. And seeing this all, I think the closest thing I can think is the Chicago shows and SVU. They would do crossovers, but they don't require that you see one part or the other. It's still a contained story. And the other ones that would do spin-offs too often would just pull a Buffy and Angel, or even what the DC Comics ones, where if you didn't watch the other 5 parts, then it didn't make sense.
Lost.
And it's like, not all of us, now we got to go for the episode guides and figure out what order to watch these episodes.
Exactly.
And it's going to confuse us even more because we, you know, this is on season 5 and this is only on season 2. What? I'm confused.
And I try and tell people that because we have these couples of friends who are a couple, and they're like, we love Supernatural. So we said, okay, look we'll watch. How about, just to be fair and not overload you, we'll try and pick 5 episodes of SG1 to give you a general idea. You give us 5 episodes of
your
Supernatural, right? Which I thought was fair. Well, they said, well, it's kind of hard. We'll think about it. We'll figure which one. Well, we gave them their 5, a sampling.
and it didn't matter. Here's just like Stargate's going in the can.
Well, no, with us, I sent them the list. We decided, based on good faith, we were going to start Supernatural from the beginning. Now, we're only in season 2, but we've consistently watched it. They haven't bothered at all. I'm like, you don't know what you're missing. Well, it's I saw the pilot, and it seems like there's military involved. I'm like, and?
Wow.
Like, yeah, like, you're not,
So they're sounding like my sister, who would often say, if you come to see my movie, which we're going to make fun of, I'll go and see your shitty movie. And, of course, she would never honor her part of the deal. So I gave up on the whole, okay, no, bullshit. I've done it your way.
Or the other response we got was, oh, you know what? I tried to watch it, but I was busy working at the time. So, like, I had it off to the side. And it turns out you can't kind of watch Stargate SG-1. You actually have to be invested. I'm like, yeah, that's called good writing.
I was actually able to do a few movie reviews while I watched it.
Yeah?
It's very comfort food.
Well, especially if you've seen it before, then it
some of these episodes I hadn't seen. It was just that kind of just a very layered. I'm so blown away by the editing, the visuals, the direction, and the directors really did have a big say in this. They, because they were also producers on this, and they were making sure the actors were perfectly cast, and some of them again had been on all the other sci-fi shows. It's actually a lot of fun seeing John DeLancey, who's best known to Trekkies SQ, but he had already been on Legend with Richard Dean Anderson,
and MacGyver.
Oh, that's right. And so there you go. They'd already been best buds, so that the Trekkies were going, "Oh, I see what you did there," and the other people were like, who know Richard Dean, are like, oh, "I see what he did there."
Yeah, exactly. Well, he would, Richard Dean Anderson is one of those giving actors, as opposed to the stories you hear about William Shatner, where he would steal lines and fake scenes. Richard Dean Anderson is the opposite, where he'd go, you know what? Do you remember the episode in particular of Stargate SG-1 where Daniel's grandfather is there because it was like a crystal skull?
Yes! That was one of my favorites. That was mind-blowing.
That was supposed to be Jack O'Neill. It was supposed to be a Jack O'Neill story, but he said, you know what? I think this is much more of a Daniel story because I've had that kind of adventure on MacGyver. Why don't we let him shine?
Right.
And he would do that all. He would bring on, like you said, he would bring on friends. General Hammond.
Don Davis had been a stuntman and character actor on MacGyver, and he brought him in.
When they were having the conversation of, we need the boss. Who's going to be the general? He goes, I know a guy. So, all these people got Walter, the technician, the gate technician.
I love him. And
he got his name because Richard Dean Anderson ad-libbed, which he did all the time, ad-libbed that line, and he goes, Walter. And he even said, can we give him more lines? Can we let him shine a little more?
He wanted to make sure everyone's refrigerated and actually, contained and interacting as opposed to being a featured extra who doesn't do anything.
Like Gary Jones, Walter, told me in particular, he goes, I have a career because of him. He, especially during the 8th season where Jack becomes general, he goes, can he be like my radar from MASH? Can we have, because he would follow him around and do the serious work that Jack.
That's so true. By season 3, he is definitely following them in the hallway more as opposed to because for a while it just seemed like, and after a while he really does start enjoying the exposition, because for a while it was just like he's just the guy who we indicate that the iris is open to the Stargate
and do the countdown.
Right, and after a while, is like then they start actually showing his close-ups, and because he's having fun saying the lines now, so now there's more fun.
Yeah, and Dan Shea, who he's on the show, he was his stunt double.
That's right.
Richard Dean Anderson would do the majority of his own stunts, but Sergeant Seiler was for years from MacGyver through the TV movies to SG-1.
I've talked to him on Facebook. Nicest guy ever.
Isn't he?
I even noted how I just saw you in that one episode of Psych because he was the stunt coordinator on that show. He did all the car chases and wacky take fighting. And so, like you say, is like that's a double duty role to have both your own character who is the Kenny of the show always gets injured or is a red shirt equivalent, and then actually, like you say, stand in for Richard Dean when you don't see him on screen getting thrown by one of the gods.
Yeah.
Down the stairway. So.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to.
I think these heroes, they stand out. Also, Indiana Jones and even Aliens are a good parallel because when they get their asses handed to them, they do get their asses handed to them. So you actually get emotionally invested in the fight scenes. And then, you know, Tilk will often manage because he's got regenerative powers. Jackson will suffer because he's the scientist and he's the fighter secondary. And so it is cool seeing how everyone is well staged in a encounter or conflict of the week, because then that ups the stakes, that ups the emotion. One of them gets captured, but it's not just special effects. You know that one of them, and it's I as we go on to the other shows, I like how they insert themselves into the conflict too, without feeling like they're just on a separate soundstage saying the lines. You know.
Well, one of the things that really is a defining quality of why everybody loves it is they don't try to be. They're not from the future. They're not aliens from a different planet that we're watching. It's us. It's us going through this portal going, I don't know what's on the other side. And Jack, besides being the voice of logic and reason, is also us to go, oh, come on. Nobody talks like that. Like, he'll say it. Nobody talks like that. Why is this guy, you know?
He'll be a brute, but you actually kind of like him because there's a reason he'll be a dick about it. And then Sam, you know, she starts off kind of being, I wouldn't say wimpy, but trying to resolve everything peacefully. And then by the end, she's like, okay, I can't reason with these guys there.
Well, Daniel in particular is Mr. Peace and Love, and let's talk about it. Even though you want to blow my head off, maybe if I give you a pear, you'll like, and you know, and Jack will just, nope. You know, you can't, 99% of the time, Jack is right. And I only leave that 1% because he's also smart enough to defer to the rest in the group. He's not a bully. He goes, I think it should be this, guys, and we'll let them have a say.
That's true.
That's a good leader.
Well, there's that, too, because, you know, you would look at Sisko and Archer, you know, both Star Trek captains.
Right.
And they could be cold-hearted dicks at times. And, you know, the difference between Jack O'Neill is he often would come back at it and actually talk to people afterwards saying, I know why you did what you did. I wasn't doing it to contradict you or disagree with you. I just feared for your life. I mean, when there's the one robot gal.
I know. I was going to mention that one. I love that you mentioned that one.
I never forget how Jackson at the end is like, I will never forgive you. And at the end, he's like, I know why you did it, Jack. And still saves him when he gets captured.
Well, because, I mean, the robot, you know, Daniel through the whole
didn't even know she was a robot.
Right. and he's like, well, you know, I just think when he ends up getting thrown through a shelf, Jack is like, all right, shut her down. That's it. And she's like, well, wait a minute, Jack. I think she just didn't like what I was saying. He goes, well, I don't like most of what you say. I try to resist the urge to throw you through a wall. You know? He's the voice of logic and reason. It doesn't matter if it, quote unquote, might have a soul. Shut it down. And then it starts building freaking replicators.
Right.
Kill it. That's it. So when he comes through the door and guns her down, you're right. Daniel's like, you stupid son of a b. Right. And he's pouting about it. Like, nope. Jack's like, too bad. You were wrong. She had to die at the end.
But remember, he also bellows, I came here to save your ass.
Yeah.
And so he's definitely one of my favorite Jacks because he's also not a patsy. He's also not a whatever command says. He's like, he will gladly disobey an order if he can find a way to get around it or buy everyone time. Like, yeah, we're shutting the gate down. Hurry.
Yeah, get through. Well, I'll tell you this. Even though he was a general for the 8th season, a lot of people go, well, everybody likes Hammond. Okay, yeah, Hammond was a fine general, but Jack was a general for 1 year. I mean, he was a general afterwards, but he was
the place.
He was in command of the whole thing and ended the replicators and the Gould. He made the hard call that Hammond had to, like, you know, watch the yellow tape and kind of play politics. Jack goes, no, kill him, you know, or, you know, yes, no, or go against orders like you said. So
I really dig how
he was most effective.
Well, that, and you're actually able to follow all the other, Gaul rebels who may or may not be allies with SG-1, the other system keepers, as they call them, and the Tok'ra is an interesting parallel, especially for Sam's development as a character.
Yep.
Figure out, they've saved me, but was it for them? Was it for them to use me as a patsy, or was it to actually save me? And so some of them is legit, but at the end of the day, she buys into Jack's logic that, and I love how a lot of people like to hate Jonas, played by Parker Lewis himself, Corin Nemec. And I thought that was an interesting thing because he's another kind of smart alecky kind of punk kid who's taking it serious, but slowly trying and failing to bond with Jack while at the same time being backup for Tilk. And I just love how during that time, Sam plays even more tricks when, she gets taken over by some of those, Gauls. And it's just interesting how, it's like that she's just too good for them. She's too powerful because she's got a bigger mind than any of those little Nimrods.
Well, a lot of people through the years continue to make the mistake of thinking of him as a replacement for Daniel. And he's not. Jonas is his own person because he's his own. Well, because here's what happened. Michael Shanks leaves. They bring in Corin Nemec's character, Jonas Quinn, to be his replacement on the team. Well, okay. That doesn't mean he's trying to ever be Daniel.
And they still had, fortunately, other episodes where Daniel appears in flashbacks or in
and then in the end, when he does come back, I love to see them team up. That was great.
It was great because it was also just a peaceful gathering. They even hinted that, hey, I'll probably visit you on your planet, because then they visit his homeworld and it's like, man, they should have totally snuck in a Jonas cameo had he not gone on to other stuff.
Exactly. Well, I had him on. He's going to come back on another time.
Oh, really?
On the MacGyver podcast. Actually, I'll tell you, check out the YouTube video of the episode because it's him holding his phone while we're chatting. He's like, look, I'm eating a Snickers and here I'm making a steak and we're just shooting the bull like buddies because we've been friends through social media for a while, but now to actually, be quote unquote face to face. Well, he is all for coming back and wanted to stay anyway. But they wrote him off the show, which I feel was a mistake. They could have just said he's still on Earth. We just don't necessarily get to see him all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. If they didn't want to write for that many people or what was it? But
yeah. Well, again, you could have had Daniel go off somewhere. Like if Michael Shanks wanted to try something. Okay, bring in Jonas. You know what I mean? Because Jonas said he was learning.
Episode.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Perfect.
What's the number of that episode? Does it say?
37.
There you go. Let me know when you do see it because actually you're going to love all these because the MacGyver podcast, we don't just talk about obviously MacGyver stuff. It's Stargate. So I'll get all the writers, producers, and they just tell great, insightful stories. But anyway,
because they are that insightful. They're that vapid storytellers. I mean, even the people who you don't suspect to not necessarily even just dislike, but you don't even see how they're going to come to the picture. You think, okay, they're going to be defeated after, this. And then they come in and they're a different light, just showing you how they've evolved as people, even though they're not still a force of opposition, like Ronnie Cox's senator. Mm-hmm. I love how in the alternate universe episode, they hint, oh shit, what happens if he becomes president? And then I love how Jack, he doesn't give a fuck where you're from. He's just like, if you abuse any trust or try and shut down my program or kill millions, I'm coming after you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like he tells Mayborn, I'll shoot you.
Yeah. Here he is. Mayborn is another fun one because constantly he's getting taken over or going to another planet. And I love how a bunch of other people who, believe it or not, had interviewed like Richard Dean at one point ended up becoming guest stars in that episode. Wayne Brady's the alien villain of the week, and that was just so.
You know why he got that part?
Because he choked a bitch. I don't know.
No, nope.
Because he does, and I was like, "Damn, nice."
He had a talk show, Wayne Brady, and he had
because Richard Dean was the guest on.
Well, he said, "I'm such a fan," so Richard Dean Anderson said, "Okay." And got him on. Like, he's the guy. He's the guy who does for others. Oh, you like the show? Why don't you come on and I'll figure out a part for you. boom, like, you know, you'll see a lot of the people from MacGyver will show up a lot of times on Stargate.
Absolutely.
Because he likes them and he remembers them, and, you know, that's a good person.
Only thing that was missing was Bruce McGill, but yeah, fair enough. Yeah, everybody else pretty much got on there.
Yeah, get Jack Dalton going through the gate. Ah, crap. Actually, you know what? I'll give you a little a little tease for my audio series.
Woo!
The MacGyver SG-1 audio series picks up. Well, okay, it does two things. It gives new stories for MacGyver and Stargate SG-1, but it starts after. It jumps around a bit because some of them are in between the episodes that you already know.
Mm-hmm.
Other stories are right now. So Jack, here's the premise. Jack basically finds out when he had the Ancients' knowledge downloaded into his brain and he first meets Thor and the Asgard. Do you remember the episode? Oh, you got it. When we're done,
season 8, I think.
No. That's
you're talking
that's
back
part
in 5.
2.
Okay,
we're talking back in season 2.
Oh, okay.
He goes. The episode starts. They go through the gate. They're in one room. They're like, all right, there's nothing here. This is just an empty room. This thing forms out of a room, and it's the head grabber. Well, Jack looks in it. It grabs him. It downloads. It makes him pass out. Well, it turns out it downloaded the Ancients' knowledge into his head. If you haven't seen this, you better go back when we're done.
No, I've seen it all.
I swear to God.
I remember the one where it was the Body Snatchers episode, and then there was Cyborg O'Neill. I love that episode where he finds out there's a cyborg duplicate of him, and he's like, "I'm O'Neill. No, I'm O'Neill."
Yeah, that's first season. Tin Men, it was called. But this.
There's another one they do later on. I recall.
Yeah. Same guys. It's the same. It's like a sequel to that. But
okay, that's
season 4. Anyway, see, now you got me going through my catalog in my head. But no. So this thing, the way this episode ends is they meet the Asgard, who they've been wondering about for a long time. It's the little gray Roswell aliens looking guys. So
right.
In my audio series, I have it where they had said something to him off camera about you're one of two. Well, while he's recovering, Daniel, Teal'c, and Sam do a little investigating, and it turns out that Jack O'Neill was a twin. His twin brother is Angus MacGyver.
I love it.
So now, from that point on, I can do the meeting for the first time. I can, have them deal with each other's enemies. So their worlds basically collide. So they're all part of the same universe.
I'm an asshole. I have not listened to this yet.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Who did you hire to do the voiceovers of the?
Lovely actor, very, very talented, named Mac Jackson. You may have heard of him.
I'm talking to his clone right now.
Exactly. No, what happened was I thought about maybe I knew who I could do Jack and MacGyver. I feel we're cut from the same cloth, but I thought maybe I'll get someone else to be someone for Daniel, someone for, Carter. And I thought, you know what? I'm not patient enough to wait on people. I want to get going. The moment I had the idea pop into my head, I'm like, start typing. I got to start writing the story. Well, now that I've written the first episode, they're about a half hour, 20 minutes long. I can't wait to hear somebody record it, edit them, have them redo something if I didn't like it. I just went, you know what? If it's me, I'm my own worst critic. So I can do voices enough, and I also have to narrate it. Okay, well, I'm on episode I just released right before Christmas, episode 11.
Is this also on Podbean or Anchor?
Yes, all of it.
Okay,
if you type in MacGyver SG-1 audio series, you are going to find it. And I do artwork where it shows them together, so you get like
the one in behind you.
That's a
good Photoshop.
Thank you. That's actually, I worked on that for a while. That's yeah, I did that as like a movie poster to, as you know, share on Twitter and social media to say, here's what you can kind of expect. If this doesn't wet your whistle, I don't know what does. But
speaking of movie, I am so glad that Michael Shanks just kind of peacefully kind of resolved the whole movie crowd versus the TV show crowd, because
that was so funny.
The movie creators were just like, we've never seen it, but because they took it from us, we don't want anything to do with it. We want to reboot it. And I like how Daniel was like, they're welcome to, but good luck telling everybody to abandon all the love they've grown to have for these TV show characters that are more real than the movie.
And as a matter of fact, there's still that push, obviously, because it's a show that could go on forever. There's never a time where you go, all right, they've told all the stories they could tell. No, they have a portal everywhere.
I was so relieved when Amanda and Dean at that convention from a few years ago actually just confirmed is like, we're talking.
Yeah. And Brad Wright just came out. He said, when this pandemic is over, we would have been doing something right now if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Because he and Cooper got so sick of having every incredible show that they worked on, Travelers, Dark Matter, just continually get canceled by stupid Sci-Fi Channel guys who weren't serious about it. And so
right.
I hope they can keep pushing. I hope that the MGM liquidation sale doesn't interfere with this. I hope
it won't, because I think part of Brad's thing is I got something planned, which might mean it might go to Netflix. Like if Netflix or somebody gets the license, because MGM, as you know,
that would make sense because it's now on Netflix this year.
Which kind of goes, wait a minute, why did they do that? If they have it on Netflix, they're planning on bringing it. They're going to start new episodes, which would be.
It might be a power play. They're just saying, okay, if we like the ratings we get when it's on our platform, yeah, we'll pick you up on that.
If you ever wanted to just steal money and put it in your pocket, you keep Stargate going. You have 10 years plus of stuff that people still love as much today. Why would MGM sit on it and go, yeah, we know. We were part of they
even launched their own MGM streaming platform for this.
Right. And we did a Twitter tweet storm a couple times to say, save the gate and blah, 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 blah. MGM didn't even bother to comment. Like they just couldn't care less.
Wow.
And it was #1 trending, or, I don't know the science behind it, but it did really well both times. And MGM just went, yeah, whatever. So I hope they lose it. I hope it goes to anybody else in the world.
Somebody, I don't care if Disney has to interfere with this. I don't care if Lionsgate buys it back since they own the movie rights somewhat. So it's like, yeah, anybody who's serious, please take it.
Well, I'll tell you, to make the transition to one of the other Stargate shows, Joe Flanagan actually at one point tried to buy the franchise.
Did he?
He came this close to getting it.
Very close.
He's like, yeah, why would I not want to buy this? If the rights are up or whatever, I'll gladly buy it. And then at the last minute, he actually tells it better. At the last minute,
by someone else.
Well, somebody blocked him. It was one of those where, legally you could try to buy it, but because of this one little caveat, no. And then the time ran out on when he put his bid in. Right. Damn. But I love the dedication. Now, you've seen Stargate Atlantis.
Yes, I've seen all of these. I've revisited them all, and I'm sure we're all going to...
Let me ask you, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a few episodes that don't necessarily gel as well, and I think that's because of what's his name, the lead writer, just was struggling to do all these other shows, and he often starts. He had been the supporting writer in SG1, so he often starts better just coming up with the idea rather than being the main anchor. But I don't think he's ever as bad as, say, Brendan Braga, where he's so stressed out and going on autopilot. But I think it holds up well. I see why some people like it better, but I'm sorry. For me, SG1 will always be #1.
Always. Without a doubt. It was perfect.
Right. And don't get me wrong. They do good by wisely having some of the same characters transfer over there and always having a new person in charge each season, including Sam. Yep. And the episodes where Tilk teams up with Jason Momoa's Ronan. Yeah, that was great. And I mean, I tell people who don't like him Momoa being wasted in some good or bad film or show is like, hey, he was Aquaman before he was Aquaman. He is dynamite here.
That's right.
He was the Worf of the show, but something more.
Well, I'll tell you, from my point of view, and I'm going on real time when I saw it, because at this point when Atlantis starts, Richard Dean Anderson, it was the 8th season of SG1. So
right, had 2 years left.
SG1 was still excellent for this. 8 seasons.
For the RDA years, yeah.
Right. Well, you could tell that he was not put in charge of the Atlantis side of it because one of the things Richard Dean Anderson always fought against was cliches. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do the sexy bimbo character who comes on and is sassy. Well, the moment he's gone, who do they bring on but Vala? Right?
Right.
So Vala's, well, he wouldn't have allowed that to happen. Well, on Stargate Atlantis, they had a good setup for that first year. They had Lieutenant Ford, which for whatever reason, they wasted him and then made him die, quote, become bad and go away. And they bring in the cliche tough guy, Ronan.
They have Ronan, they have Colonel Caldwell. And
all these guys who, I'm going to shoot first and you should be scared of me. Blah.
What's his name? Who was the one? I really did not like Sergeant Bates. And who's the other guy? Dr. Kavanaugh was very annoying.
Right. Everybody hated Cat. I'm gonna tell General O'Neill. Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Oh my God.
Remember that?
Right. They were shitting on him, and it's just like, good God.
He's like, I'm gonna rat to General O'Neill. I'm thinking I would love to see that little ponytailed wimp go to General O'Neill and go, they're not doing what I want them to, and he would have just thrown him back through the gate. Maybe zatted him first and threw him through the gate. But
either one is preferred. That is for sure.
And you have Rodney there, McKay.
Mm-hmm.
But as great as he is, he's an a-hole, and I don't root for a-holes. You know what I mean? Like I liked it despite him. He'd come off with some funny lines. But
I hated him on SG-1, and then after season 2, I grew to like him. But he is a very flawed man, and
right. And they soften him up a bit. Remember?
Yeah, they do. And then Dr. Ware,
mm-hmm.
I was okay with the original person they had playing her, but they recasted her because of scheduling conflicts. But it's like she really carried the show. Dr. Beckett was the Scotty, very hysterical, and Taylor was cool having that aliens meeting with the human side of things, because they're basically Atlantis people are basically just a Native American type colony.
Well, a funny little story. The one who was supposed to be Weir, that was in the 2-parter Lost City, she didn't know that she was getting set up for a spinoff. So they're like, yeah, you did great. That was great. Now we're going to go do your own show. And she went, what? Oh, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
What do you mean you don't want to do that? Yeah, I don't want to be tied down. Oh, God forbid success comes to you. Right?
Yeah.
But I did like the actress. I remember that.
That makes better sense because, they do a good job of changing it up. I like how they have the Chinese ambassador, Shin, there. She's interesting because now she's actually waking up and realizing we better stop bullshitting and actually make sure that this gate is secure. I like how in that same episode that it's either that or SG-1, and they do the whole, hey, let's go watch Starship Troopers after fighting a bunch of bugs.
Yeah. Go ahead. You were going to say.
They had some good crossovers here and there, but I know what you mean. It's like, it's not the same, but I prefer it over even Deep Space Nine. I feel like the characters are just humorous enough. There's still a lot of the same nature. It's just they do, like you say, with the one current lieutenant at the first season, they do fall victim to some CGI not being 100% and some subplots being tossed instantly out. And I still think it ends pretty well.
Sure.
Compared to some other shows where it's like, there's never any seasons that just really dangle, but there might be maybe 2 or 3 episodes, which will vary by crowd each episode. But I like how, again, Flanagan's character is just, he basically is Jack O'Neill. He's not 2.0, but he's basically Junior. He's just kind of just.
I never thought that, and I remember him being asked on stage,
Shepard.
Are you gonna be like Jack? And I guess if you had to say he can be a mouth, I don't think their humor or whatever matches up. But
no, I'm just doing by the smart ass and just
yes, and you could tell. I don't know if you picked up on this. Jack likes Shepard. He's like,
yeah.
That's my boy. I don't like Mitchell, but I like Shepard. And like,
because he in the first few episodes, he's absolutely mentoring him, saying, here's the responsibility. You're doing it. I'm passing the torch to you for this show. You know?
Yeah. And he even said Joe Flanagan
they nearly get shot down in their helicopter. And
from the drone.
And that's where, this guy's not going to be, second in command. He's going to take charge. He's already gotten out of a near, awful, court-martial for just always disobeying people who are superiors to him, but who are just jarheads who listen to their guns, not logic.
Well, I'll tell you too that Joe Flanagan was on a plane with Richard Dean Anderson. They were sitting next to each other, and it was before he knew he got the part, and I guess they had just started and they were flying somewhere. And he says, could you give me any sort of advice? And Richard Dean Anderson said, I don't know. I can't give you advice. What am I don't know. And then he's quiet for a couple minutes. He goes, don't get hung up. Don't be the yip yap guy. And he goes, what? He goes, don't be the guy who has to do all the explaining, which is one of the things that even on MacGyver, he wanted him to be realistic. He didn't want to come into the room and go, oh, yes, well, that because of this, and lay the pipe of all the story that you're going to watch for the rest of the hour. He said to him, let another actor do that. Don't be that guy. And so he went, okay. So when he went back to the show and they were writing the episode and they had to explain how something worked or whatever, he stepped back and said, you know what? I think David Hewlett would be really good at being that guy. He's really smart, don't you think? And they're like, okay, from here on out, McKay will be the one to do all the sci-fi talk.
Well, and that's what I like about him too, is he then has to, sometimes he'll have to re-explain stuff, and they were able to work in a lot of humor. What I'm really trying to say is this. You're not getting it. And so, but
overall, go ahead.
He had to also avoid, he would always do the whole, I'm going to work on being less of an asshole, and it would always be hard because,
Yeah, I mean, they really made McKay as likable as McKay could be by the end of first or second season.
Definitely season 2, because midway through he's got hallucinations, then he's realizing that's wishful thinking. I need to really.
And he makes mistakes too. That's the thing too. He'd always go, "Oh, I'm smarter than Carter," but he knew in his heart he
beats himself up on it.
Yeah, and he knew Carter was always going to be smarter, and then he accidentally blows up a solar system.
Yeah. And that is so. But years after Michael J. Nelson was doing it on Mystery Science Theater, he was doing it too by accident. So, but I mean, difference is, he's not an idiot. He does he does own up to it, and he beats himself over the head. He's like, how could I be so stupid?
Well, overall, when somebody asks, what do I think of Stargate Atlantis? I always look at it as the little brother to SG-1.
That's fine.
SG-1 is perfect for those
kind of a
8
continuation
seasons.
in some way.
Well, it's connected. Here's why I say big brother or little brother, because it's never going to be as good as SG-1 no matter what, because just the perfect mix of writing, cast, producers, blah, 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 blah. But it's still really, really good. I mean, it's still up there. It's always just going to be the little brother. Right, Wolseley. Oh, geez.
Most unlikable Congress tool. And there he is. He's realizing, I have a purpose.
And they lighten him up, too. He goes from being the bad guy
And he's like, you don't understand these people. It's another world. And so even if you hadn't seen the SG-1 episodes where he slowly evolves and becomes less of a prick, yet you didn't see the Atlantis ones, and he's just realizing this is my job. I adhere to it. I want to protect this other city that no one will ever know about, and while also protecting the Earth. We're the second line of defense. We're the ones who relay stuff to SG-1 when stuff goes south.
And it's a great, I mean, if you're going to do a spin-off of an excellent show, that's pretty darn good, because they're their own thing.
Yeah. But but totally. And the other colonies are interesting. I like how there's plenty of times where, to save time and money, they would have them be trapped, and you get to actually learn about them instead of, them. And so many other, lesser Star Trek franchises, would have at least one episode where someone's trapped, but they wouldn't do anything with it. And it's like, here, you would actually And I say that as an avid Star Trekkie, but it's like here is like you would actually learn more about them and what they think about life and why they even got here in the first place.
Well, my wife, I always remember, I'll never forget it. When we first met, we were talking about what's your favorite show. And and she said Star Trek Next Generation. And she goes, that's been, I'd say number one. And I said, okay, you need to see Stargate. And right after the first couple episodes, she went, all right, you got it. You win. Yep. And now she says, she'll tell everybody, SG-1 is my favorite show of all time.
I know what you mean. It's the same thing when you look at all these other shows. Is like people often go The Sopranos. I'm like, yeah, well, Power, Ray Donovan, Breaking Bad, they couldn't exist without that. But I kind of liked Oz, and that was technically first before Sopranos. So there you go. Is that you got all these other shows. It's like, hey, we owe our success or existence to you, but we're not saying we rely on you to be that good. They kind of outdone it. So
yeah. Well, and it's its own thing too. So you can't. It's not like a competition.
Yeah. I mean, because you look at even the Riddick franchise, and it's like, there are some Star Wars and Trek and even Alien elements, but there's definitely a lot of SG-1 elements too, with the alien races and the societies and even just the production values and seeing some of the same cast and crew. So there you go.
So for those that are listening now, I think we've sold everybody pretty much on SG-1.
Right. So
if you decide to not watch SG-1 after this, we can't help you. We cannot help you. Praise it enough. And if you want after that, if you could also watch Atlantis. Fine. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just it's not SG-1, right?
Well, right. It's just a spin-off continuation that holds its own ground, but is never as epic. It's just that kind of show.
Right. Now, but again, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And I mean, Stargate was then followed by 2 excellent TV movies, which I'll review on a separate episode with all the movies. What were your take on that?
Okay, here's my thought.
Straight to DVD and then...
Well, that's fine because that was the plan. And there was supposed to be a third... Well, there was supposed to be a third one, which... since you're asking, I'll tell you. Atlantis ended prematurely. They didn't get to... They thought they were getting another season. And the people at MGM, there was somebody new who came in and said, I don't care how successful our Friday nights are with these 3 shows. Stargate... SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, and Battlestar Galactica. I don't care. I'm going to make a name for myself, so we're going to wipe them out. So he ends Atlantis and SG-1.
I know. I forget the name of him, but he shouldn't have even had the position.
He should have been shot. He should have been shot. Because he's the guy who brought in wrestling on the Sci-Fi Channel.
And he was the one who even talked shit saying... Sci-fi fans aren't real people and utter crap like that. It's
exactly. So what they had to do was they had to wrap up the SG-1 storyline with the TV movie or a DVD movie, which is great because I view that the Arc of Truth is the name of it.
Yes,
I view it as good a TV movie they could have done without Jack O'Neill, which again. As was the mistake of season 9 and season 10, they didn't utilize Richard Dean Anderson enough, who had said, even though I can't be full-time, when you need me or want me, especially in the 10th season forward, he had left to raise his daughter. There's stuff going on with her. He said, I have to do it. I have to leave.
She just got through college, and so, he had to look out for her.
So then the daughter says, Dad, it's okay. I've watched the 9th season. You can go back to that show now. So he goes back and goes, if you need me, I'm here. My daughter gave me permission to work again. And they didn't. They used him
still sparingly and not in the best way, except for the episode called The Shroud, where he basically makes the call and saves the day against the Ori. And then he does the 2-parter on SG or Atlantis. That was a great one.
My favorite out of it because obviously him, but and he's ad-libbing through the whole freaking thing. So
I did not know that, but
when you watch these funny lines of Richard Dean Anderson, that's him ad-libbing.
Oh, perfect! But
because he even said the writers would try and write for him, and they just went, "We can't. Let him do what he wants. Go ahead, you were going to say.
I loved how he even got to do some serious underwater, swimming and come up to the surface while disarming some gadgets and other stuff. So it's just cool seeing him in adventure. And,
in one shot, too. He held his breath.
Yeah, it's just mind-blowing. No one else could do that nowadays. But he's in a few funny episodes, but...
He was in 200, which was kind of a throwaway episode. I always call it the waving from the door, because he doesn't come into the room completely. They kind of have him go, "Hey, kids." And if you'll notice, Vala shuts her mouth and doesn't say a thing. And I thought, good, because Jack's not going to stand there and let her get all lippy. And then, he's kind of there, but they didn't really utilize him.
What do you think about the puppet episode where they're coming up with bad
that's
ideas?
the same one. That's the same.
That's the
it's
one.
200.
Okay. I like how they make him be invisible.
And, and that was him in the green suit too.
Oh, really? I thought it was just a voiceover.
They said, "You don't have to do that. We could just do a voiceover." He goes, No. I know my gestures. Let me carry the coffee cup and we'll just film it. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, that Martin, your buddy Martin, was in that one too, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah. Because he's the producer who comes and goes, "I want the movie idea,
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's because there he is calling action or something. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Robert C. Cooper is, he's uncredited, but anyone who's seen the documentaries and all the behind-the-scenes stuff instantly recognizes.
No, I mean the actor who is Martin from the episode from the 4th season that you weren't as.
Oh.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait, hold up, Martin.
Yep.
Martin who? Sorry,
That's okay. No. That's what I'm here for. You were talking about earlier the episode where the...
the geek. Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's him. He's the movie producer.
That's right. Yeah, they continue his character. I like that continuation of him. Yeah.
Right?
And you have Don LaFontaine in both episodes doing the voiceover of the TV promo.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the movie.
It's kind of Galaxy Quest-ish. Having these nerds admire it from afar, realizing they can't talk about it.
Willie Garson is the actor. I had to make sure I mentioned his name. He's in everything.
You're right.
But anyway, so that Arc of Truth was a nice wrap up to the Ori story. Mm-hmm. They wasted the opportunity to have Jack. I don't know why they wouldn't have Jack. They didn't have Jack on the very last episode of SG-1. Unending was the name of it.
I think that's what Continuum was pretty much meant to be. There's like, hey, he's in the movie.
So the next one after Arc of Truth, which again, great movie to wrap up the story. Doesn't feel it feels like another great 2-hour episode of the show.
Just epic, yeah.
So they do that, and then the next one is Continuum.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I love time travel, so I'm a sucker for that. I love alternate timelines.
You get to see the president even being on the action, played by William Devane.
You get to see an alternate Jack, and you see how Carter's like, that's the guy I love, and he doesn't even recognize me. And Jack dies, quote unquote,
right? And they have
in
to
the beginning, and then they have to fix it.
Jackson has an epic final stand. The alternate Tilk has to realize he has a bigger purpose and undo it, and
it's great. I mean, that's a 2-hour movie, and they cover. It's different, but it's still just as great in quality, so it doesn't feel alien, quote unquote, making the pun. But the next movie they were planning on doing was a Jack-centered one. They were going to officially say Carter and Jack are married. Because
I like it.
Well, for those who want to check out the audio series, I have them together. Like they get married. Because at this point, if you're talking about the right now, 2021, why would they not be married? Like, how many times do they have to save the world before you can cut that that red tape and allow them to get married?
Right?
Right? I mean, let's cut the crap.
It's not like Scully and Mulder where it's like, let's wait for them to kiss. It's like, no, let's get on with it.
And they've even admitted many times on the show how they feel about each other. And a little tidbit for anybody watching these episodes again, watch Richard Dean Anderson and Amanda Tapping with each other. He gently will touch her hand at moments. Like if he's passing her a file, he'll reach over and like touch her hand.
And not forcefully.
Very subtle.
Yeah.
It's very subtle. They don't focus on it. You just have to be watching it enough times to go, ooh, I never saw that, but that type of thing.
Well, and I think everyone on that show is very underrated in terms of, because it's a sci-fi show, much like horror and action, the Academy and people, just movie purists like to act like, oh, there's no way you can do a better job. It's like bullshit. I mean, they're still following the structure that every actor does. They're filling in the backstory for themselves. Their body language is perfect.
I got to see Richard Dean Anderson for the second time last year, and I brought the kids are old enough that they got to go with us. And
nice.
my wife had never met him, so dream come true. And
nice.
They got to ask him, like my wife got to ask him, I noticed little things that you do where you reach out and you touch her. Was that planned? He goes, no, you're in the moment. You are that character. So
right.
if you want to reach down and be comforting and grab somebody's hand, whether it's in the script or not, you just do it.
For a guy who started out on soap operas and doing even made-for-TV detective and sports movies, he's been through it all. He's done it all, and he is that kind of guy. He does a lot of tender stuff as well as...
And subtle and realistic. That's the thing. It's so realistic. You forget that you're watching somebody act and say lines that were written.
Exactly. He knows how to have fun, kind of be a school jock, and then, like you say, like the better movies with Harrison Ford, you do see a lot of his use a similar kind of nature of just he's reading into people, and it plays well to the camera. So
exactly. So they were supposed to do a third movie, and I hope it comes to pass.
Something, man.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be about Jack, and I was thrilled. And then what happened was MGM went bankrupt, and they shut everything down. And the other movie they were supposed to do was the Stargate Atlantis movie that shows them leave the San Francisco Bay and go back into space. Because remember, that's how the show ends.
I'm sold. I'm so sold.
Right. So with whatever they come up with next, I hope they touch upon all of these. Because now let's move into the third series.
Universe.
Okay.
Two seasons and a book to wrap it all up.
What, the comic, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. So it was a graphic novel. Okay. I saw people promote it, but I didn't know if it was a book or a comic. So
I had Vaughn on, J.K. Vaughn, he's one of the writers. He was on to, you'll see that episode on or hear it if you choose.
Okay.
A lot of fun. He gives you a lot of insight. But yeah, it was great because the thing about him was he took the time to write long dialogue. You felt like those were the characters that he was writing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go ahead.
I'll let you review this whole thing, how you feel about it, how it's evolved. And I'll get to mine a bit after that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you again, from my point of view.
Obviously, it's no SG-1, but how does it stand as its own gritty, post-Dark Knight kind of thing?
I think it's great. However, you have to go into it. First of all, it was doomed before it began because they had already decided that they were ending Atlantis. And before that new guy came onto MGM, they had already signed the deal to do this third spinoff for 2 seasons. So this was not going to get a third season no matter what.
Ah, man.
Right.
Those
so
fuckers.
Exactly. I'm with you. So they already had made that decision. Plus, the producers made the mistake of saying, well, if you guys like Battlestar Galactica, it has that dark feeling.
It definitely has that same tone, even the same kind of camera shots. And
right, with the floating camera, and it's
the
supposed
captain
to be
flat out murders someone, and then he has to defend himself saying it was a mercy kill, and it was for the better, it was keeping us behind.
But that whole blurred camera where nothing's steady, the shaky cam, that's very, and okay, maybe they were trying to copy that aesthetic.
They were doing the steady cam, but often it leans too much into shaky at times because sometimes.
Right. And it was supposed to be those globes were filming them, if you remember.
Mm-hmm. And seeing Mike DePod, who had been a previous, Stargate stuntman and, a guest star be a totally different role there was something else too,
Mm-hmm. So they made the mistake of saying that, and everybody who loves Stargate goes, we don't want Battlestar Galactica. We want, so they kind of turn people off, unfortunately. So then it starts. And, I'm not blindly saying I like it because it's Stargate. I'll tell you if it's crap.
Right.
The way it starts is very slow.
Mm-hmm.
I can handle that. I can be patient. But the first half of the first season is, let's do an episode where it's called air. Another one is called water. Like
all these elements that you don't know what they mean. And I did have to have the Wicca open because there was some stuff I just wasn't understanding. It was like, oh, okay, fuck me. Right. So they're switching bodies, and that's why,
Exactly. And it's very heady. It's a little like they I don't think they asked too much from the audience because they never, ever wrote down.
They were fortunate enough to even have any kind of audience. They're just like, hey, if we have to still BSG's, audience, we'll do that. And I'm sure most of the cast and crew are on both. So, I mean, there shouldn't be a rivalry anyway, but I can understand them being protective of their franchise saying, we're special enough. We don't need anyone else's inspiration.
So, yeah. So they had a lot going against them. And then the episodes come out, and the first half of the first season is slow. So those who aren't patient would drop off immediately. And you go, if only you had hung on, because from the second half all the way through the second season, boom, it's phenomenal. Like, they do time travel stuff and they do alternate reality things, and you really become invested in these characters who, and here was the other part, most of these characters were not likable in the beginning.
Exactly. And you have to stick with it because, and thank God for binge watching. I was able to go through all these again on Prime, and like you say, it does, the first like 5 or so of like the 10 episode season do take their time, and then when they finally get there, then they start going no holds barred with all the plot twists, and you're like, whoa, holy shit, oh, it's Die Hard in space. And I'll say this, SG-1 was TNG. Atlantis was, in my opinion, twice as epic as Deep Space Nine. This is the superior version of Voyager.
This
is Lost in Space. This is
like, again, I didn't mind the pace of it starting slow, because again, these are people going through a gate, landing on a ship and going, I don't know what to do now. And that takes time,
But
not everything gets spelled out for them.
Yeah, but unlike this, it's going somewhere special, because other shows that start off slow often seem lost. And this one, it starts off mysterious enough. You're like, okay, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. They're building on something.
And it didn't hurt having General O'Neill show up once in a while.
Yes.
That was great. There's one episode in the second season where they confront Talford, or Tafford. Can't think of how you say his name.
It's a very mysterious.
Lou Diamond Phillips. I was talking to him about this scene, actually. And, Jack has to use those gems to swap bodies. And he ad-libs in that scene because Tafford, Lou Diamond Phillips' character, gives this big, great, angry speech of, who the heck do you think you are? And how dare, and he goes, what makes you think you're so special? And it's a great 3 minutes of solid monologue. And when he gets done, Jack goes, I know what makes me special. And just to watch the other actors just go, and they kept it. They kept it because it wasn't planned. Just like whenever you watch SG-1, when you watch Jack say something and like the other three are stunned for a minute and they kind of look at each other. Michael Shanks told me, he goes, yeah, we never know what he's going to say. So we just keep acting. But if we're stunned, they allow it to be part of our character.
That's fucking great.
Yeah.
And, so now I want to rewatch these with the commentary on, but
definitely.
Maybe you should record if you ever get to, just with a cast member, is like, because let's do an episode review with the actor commenting on the episode.
Oh, honest to God, I would love that. Well, I'm still trying to get Richard Dean Anderson, obviously, on his own podcast because it's all about him. And when I saw him last year, he's like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't know when, but I'll be able to. And the guy who's like his helper at these things, he goes, just don't hold your breath. He'll do it. Just you have to be patient.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. And you know what I think it is? I think he's hesitant because for the last 30 years, he's had to answer the same 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't realize that I could skip over all that. Like, you know, I don't, oh, here's a piece of tape and some bubble gum.
He doesn't
make
know,
something. Like, you know. And he's always been gracious and always been kind. And he really taught me as a person how to smile through the aggravating questions or moments. And he's always, like I said, he's always sweet to everybody.
Maybe someone like Christopher Judge, who's unfortunately my only beef with Universe is he's missing. Daniel and Sam get a cameos, and yet he's missing. But don't get me wrong. We'll get back to that. But and Lou Diamond Phillips actually graduated from my college, UTA Arlington.
Another sweet, wonderful guy. He tweets with me often.
He is so hysterical on Twitter, especially just his tagline. You know that he's a jokester, just doing. And he, having seen so many of his HBO world premiere movies, and again Longmire, and I think it was Gate World or someone that did an interview with him and talked about how he even got his recurring gig on other shows like 24 and Numbers, and just he is a natural jokester. He even talks about what would happen if he had to survive a zombie apocalypse. He's like, Emilio and C. Thomas would hold their own. Me and Kiefer would be capping bitches like no tomorrow, and Charlie Sheen would be the first to be eaten. He is a natural comedian, and I love the only thing I love more than when Lou is intense is when he just is yelling, shouting, just losing his shit. And he holds his own without overdoing it or being a ham like Shatner, although that's entertaining a different aspect. But it's like, you know what I mean? He has you glued to the screen, and much like Anderson is like, you can never tell if he ad-libs or if he, planned it, because he's just so he speaks to the stage and how he walks around and talks. So that is so great that you got to talk to some of these other guys and see what makes them tick.
It's so funny too, because when I saw him at the con, he's like, "Oh, Mac." I'm like, "Yeah." Like,
you actually know who the fuck.
I'm sorry, I thought I had to introduce myself. Oh, hi, how's it going, bud?
How's it going?
And he's good to my kids, and like that type of thing.
So maybe Michael Shanks or Christopher Judge or even him should do a big convention, and then they should do what you see all the track actors like Michael Dorn and Jonathan Frakes do, or Brent Spiner. They should go out into the audience and pretend to be one of the fans and ask all the stupid questions to get everyone.
I've seen them do that.
They have.
Oh, sure.
I need to YouTube all the Stargate cons then.
When they used to have the Stargate cons before my son was born, we went to a bunch of them, and actually, not to go sidetrack, but I'll tell you quickly, I spent 4 hours playing /teaching Jason Momoa guitar out in the lobby.
No, oh my God.
Because 2 years before we had played, my wife and I have a band, Harmony Constant, and we had played at the convention. Besides being guests, like it was one of those, you're here, why don't you go up and sing some songs? So we did.
Happy for you, bud.
Thank you. Well, he was off to the side signing stuff. So he calls me over and goes, "You guys sounded great. Next time I'll bring my guitar, we'll jam." Well, I thought, okay. That's a sweet thing to say. Well,
you don't know how legit or not it is,
2 years later, I brought my guitar when I knew he was going to be there. He goes, "Oh, I didn't bring mine," but he runs back to his room, gets his slide, because he goes, "Dude, oh, come on, let's go jam." So then we're out in we play for 2 hours out in the lobby with it like roped off with security. It's just us and people get circled around us
taking photos and video.
Yeah, you can actually see the pictures on our Facebook page. But
oh, nice.
And then because his wife Lisa was pregnant at the same time my wife was with my son, and so she's taking the pictures of us just sharing my guitar. He goes, "You know what? They're going to make me go eat breakfast now, but afterwards, why don't we go buy a guitar?" I said, "What? Come on, we'll go buy a guitar." Well, they wouldn't let me go with them, even though he was all for it. They're like, "No, for insurance reasons." They were just being like his security guys or whoever were just being bossy jerks. Well, I thought, you know what? I can't complain. I had 2 hours with them. I'm not, we had a musical bond. Well, I move on. About an hour later, I'm sitting watching, you were just talking about the guy from Stargate Atlantis.
Flanagan.
No, it wasn't him. It was
Robert Picardo.
Nope, Scotsman.
Scotsman.
The doctor.
Oh,
Carson, Dr. Carson.
Oh, yes.
He's up on stage. All of a sudden, here, coming down the hall. He's looking for me in a crowd of 200 people, holding his guitar up like, where's my buddy? Where is he? We got to play. So now I go out for another 2 hours, sit there, and we each have our own guitar. We play. He's showing me how to play slide. I'm showing him how to do like frets and, like bar chords and whatever. And then he ends up, during his time on stage, he ends up auctioning off that guitar for like over $2,000 for a charity.
Man.
And he goes, that's because of my buddy Mac right there. We were just out there, we're jamming. I don't know if you heard us. And all of a sudden, 200 heads whip around to look at me. I'm like, hey, how's it going? So, he's one of those guys. He's like a big kid. So I know if I see him again, I'll go, hey, did you bring your guitar? Yeah. And we'll just go do it again.
That's perfect.
He's great.
Making it part of the stage act, and actually they're into it because they're actually socially interacting as opposed to just, telling people, hey,
Cindy and I look at him now. We go, he's like our little brother. Because look, now he went from that to being Conan to being Aquaman. I mean, the guy's he's a household name, but we knew him when,
Absolutely. He's been on free hit shows, including C and,
Mm-hmm. So yeah, overall with Stargate Universe, loved it. Wish it had gone on. I think it's everything that we said. It should have gone on just like all the other Stargate shows. It was his own thing, and if you got through the slower episodes, boy, it was worth it.
It's actually, I think people will definitely benefit from it in the world of binging because that's how it was meant to be seen, and most episodes do often lead into the following scene after the last one. The recaps are actually cool because of the epic musical score and how the actors are playing off each other, just always cutthroat. And you actually get behind a lot of them because you can understand why they're doing stupid decisions at times because they are overcome with emotion. What do you do when you're trapped in space?
Yeah. And it's
you can't think.
You don't. Hey, anybody could die at any moment. That's the feel that you get. It was very much like Lost, where don't get too hooked on people because they could die. Like, you never know that. I didn't know that until Lost. When that show was on, I'm like, oh, these guys are the main. Oh, he just got eaten. Or
that's a good point. Yeah. Everybody is
expendable.
What else can we say? Yeah, they are. they have targets on every layer of their body, and so they are now having to play ball. And the actors were very well done. They've gone on to bigger things like Continuum and all the other, sci-fi horror shows. And I just always light up each time I see them because I know they're going to really be heavily invested in their roles. And the art direction was pretty good. I liked how Robert Carl's a scientist character really does have to defend himself so much when it's very heartbreaking. I think I wept a tear when he's coming to terms with the fact that his, dementia-ridden, wife is dying from cancer. And what do you do when you're haunted by that? You can't make her proud. And at the same time, that puzzle is still, a miss. It's not put together. And you still at the same time got to second guess yourself. And he's like the only guy you can kind of forgive for. I hate to excuse anyone who's playing God, but that's pretty much what he ends up having to do because he's having to second guess. He has to trick people because otherwise they would otherwise say no. That's a stupid idea. And yeah, Lost is a good comparison. Maybe even Twin Peaks, 24. I know Brad Turner worked on both shows, and it's like it is that kind of just ticking clock mechanism that really benefits it. And season 2 picks a whole different style. It's really comfortable with itself at that point, and I like how they even bring in again Rodney and Woolsey, and the switch up that they do there is ingenious. How they have to play ball with those other colonies and planets.
They even go to Jonas's world.
That's right. Yes.
I was like, show him. Have Jonas show up. Come on. And they didn't. I was like, darn it. They didn't have him. They should have. That was a perfect opportunity.
I don't know why.
I know. Well, let me one other thing I'll say about Stargate that I feel always needs to be said. They had the most amazing special effects to the point where
for a TV show,
for anything. Because I'll tell you this, I just showed my son the original Star Wars movies and then the prequels. Now the prequels have come out after Stargate SG-1 started.
Yeah.
They are not good special effects. You watch Stargate SG-1, they have a ship come in from space in one shot, land, doors open, somebody walks in or out of the door. It's amazing. I mean, at no point do you go, oh, you could see the green screen. The special effects to this day hold up and are top notch to anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, there's only like maybe 3 bloopers throughout the whole thing. One of them is Tilk and Sam are in a different ship, and it's a very video game level graphic, but it's excusable because it's literally a 5-second blur.
Yeah,
you know what I'm. It's one of those they're getting away from another ship and they're taking 2 different escape pods.
Okay.
Do you know the one? They're trapped in space or something, and
there's one where it's Jack and Teal'c are in the spacesuits, and the ship that they're in,
totally different one.
Okay,
like Teal'c. Yeah, it's a similar one. It's definitely a sequel episode in some ways to that one. Recalls that one, and I think
if you see it, let me know, because now I'm going to go back and see if I could see what you say.
Shit, I'll have to go for my notes again. But
yeah, whenever.
It's definitely around season 3 or 4. It's before they go into the awesome space race episode, but which brings a Fifth Element feel to it. It was just one of those. It was like, but it was easily forgivable. It still told the story, and like you say, you look at any of the Star Wars, good or bad, or any era, and it's just like it doesn't matter how well they do it. They still, despite after all the model work, they still digitally scanned them in. And
especially, I remember one scene in particular with the droids, Roger droids.
Yeah,
they show a whole army of them, but at no point is the shading different on each one, and they all move exactly alike. I just went, oh, that's painful.
There's that. There's the lightsabers and even the newer ones. And it's like, okay, and you often are just like, how did Stargate get away with so much? It was just $1 million TV show, but it really spent.
If you get the right people that work on it, like I said, everybody cared so much that they could have done a half-hiney job on it, but instead they went, no. I have to make sure that this blends perfectly.
Right.
It pays off because here we're still talking about it today.
Absolutely, because I mean, Star Trek, on occasion, I can't fault them. They had to get done week by week and would occasionally reuse footage. But you look at it now and you're like, we should reuse a different shot. But fortunately, they would occasionally, reverse the angle or add 2 different scenes into one.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, is like Stargate doesn't reuse any footage. It doesn't even reuse much stock footage for flashbacks. I mean, I love X-Files to death, good or bad. It's a fun oyster, but they got really lucky because they didn't know what direction it was going in until season 2. And then they started just, people vary. Some people like the story arc. Some people just like the monster of the week. Stargate, it really didn't, even in season 1 where it's just exploration, they still have so much other stuff that they're building up to. And they pretty much do what they do later also in season 2 and 3. Just, you got to end on a cliffhanger and then wrap it up and then do some other cool arcs and then do another epic, 3-parter. And then the 4th part, which is the conclusion, is the next season premiere.
And to have it so much happen in one episode where you go, wow, that was only an hour. Boy, we did it. That was worth it.
Even look at the years, is like they're doing some extensive tracking shots that are steady and putting it in the middle of the action. Is like there's one awesome one where when they're first battling the replicators and they're going corner to corner.
Yeah.
O'Neill and Sam's suit up scene is just as awesome as when they get the superpowers. It's just that kind of feeling. It feels like you're part of the fun, as opposed to, like you say, some of the lesser Star Wars and Star Treks where it's like, this is becoming too much like a video game where I'm watching someone else play it.
Exactly. It's so much happens. What was I going to ask you? Oh, so let me ask you, now that we've gone through
Universe and
all of it,
Atlantis,
where would you, since keep your fingers crossed. We have new Stargate. I'll tell you what I've heard, but I want to hear your thoughts. Since we're going to get something new soon, hopefully an ongoing series, what would you like to see next? What would you like it to be?
That is a wonderful question. Obviously, we need Jack back, but also
Right. Agreed.
he's my favorite Jack, along with Jack Bauer on 24 and Jack McCoy on Law and Order. He is that kind of Jack. He is, and he's just a badass, and he's perfect because the one-liners actually mean something as opposed to just being dumb and campy.
Exactly.
And do you think they've explored Toke's world, they've explored Sam's dilemma, they had Jackson come back repeatedly from the dead until finally becoming mortal again? Do you think, I'm not saying they got to do fan service and repeat everything, I feel like they should just have some totally new alien race. Would that be okay? Just like,
well, not to sound like I'm plugging my own audio series, but I keep those things in mind because, again, my series is picking up where the show left off. Not only doing the past stuff, but I have to pretend like it's going on right now. So pretend the show never ended.
Okay.
Where would it logically go? They've defeated the Ori.
Jacob Carter has passed away, both the actor and the character for real.
Yes.
Apophis, he's been dealt with. Master Bratak, obviously he's got to come back. Major Landry's a big part of it. Dr. Janet Fraser passed away. I mean, shit.
Well, here's what I build off of. If you remember, and it's, again, one of those subtle lines that doesn't come up all the time, but it's just natural conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all the system lords have been defeated, haven't they? They beat them. Jack beat the replicators and wiped out the system lords. Teal'c was trying to run a free Jaffa nation.
Oh, that's right. You could do some other cool kind of just because he still had some other people at his throats. And
buddy, you got to listen. I'm dying for you to hear this series now.
Oh, I will.
you're going to be sending me.
I've been downloading it as we speak.
You're going to be sending me tweets going, "You son of a bitch," because that's what my co-host of the other podcast, when he listened to it, he's like, "You son of a bitch, you left that on a cliffhanger." But what they did was they inferred, like, think of politics. Okay, you're a free Jaffa nation. Well, guess what? What is it? What's the saying? Emptiness hates a vacuum.
That's true.
What if a lot of first primes try to become system lords, or at least be the head of a new Jaffa clan? Now they may not be as powerful or have as many followers to like be system lords and blah blah blah. But you know what? Maybe for the rest of their life, SG-1 has to go and stop these guys before they get too powerful. Now, for writing wise, or for the audience, that just means, guess what? You still have Jaffa that you have to contend with. You know what I mean? The minor detail of who these are, because throughout the series, they have mentioned other Jaffa that we never got to see. That's disappeared. True. They either disappeared, or they were beaten, or they never quite came to power.
They don't have to deal with the Ori. That's all wrapped up. They don't have to deal with Adria, and they don't even have to have Charles Kowalski, because his was just kind of just for fun fan service for longtime fans. So
yeah, and you can always have Jaffa, as far as
maybe bring Mayborn.
What level they're at, that doesn't matter to you and me because we're just listeners. But Joe Malone, go ahead.
Maybe Major Davis could become a colonel by now. He's the bald guy played by Colin Cunningham, who later was on Falling Skies.
Did you say bald guy?
He's bald in all the other roles I've seen him in. Major Paul Davis, yeah.
Well, I always said to him, when I met him, I said, I think he followed Jack to the Pentagon when Jack had to leave.
Oh, that's SGC.
Right. I guarantee.
Well, if Jack's coming back,
Jack probably said, "Oh, come with me." See, you got ideas going on in your head. I love it.
Jack runs for president.
Oh, I don't think he'd want that.
I know, but he'd be a different kind of president. He would do it just to piss off Kinsey.
Well, I see him. Right. Well, Kinsey's dead.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, but shit.
But wait, remember, he begrudgingly left the SGC to go to the Pentagon to hold off the.
That's right. He pulled a 180 after being so despicable the first few seasons.
The NID is constantly trying to control the Stargate, so Jack goes to the Pentagon to be like the military's
Joint Chiefs or something, yeah,
to kind of fight against them, which is why it makes sense. But you know, for a second, he's dying to come back to the SGC and go through the gate. General or not, he's going to make himself go through the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So when you listen to my audio series, you're going to get bits of that. And so, you know, that way everybody still, it moves the story forward, but it doesn't lose any of those key factors. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what fans have to do. Those who are loyal try and make everybody happy, as opposed to, you know, this is how my version of the events, this version of the event is like. Now is like, we just want a continuation that's done with love.
And for me, it's about being true to the characters and the universe. Sure, I would love for certain things to happen, but if it doesn't make sense to the character or the universe that I'm writing in, I can't do it. Doesn't matter what I want. It matters what
exactly.
You know what I mean? And that goes for MacGyver too, because I have to forward his story from the end of '94 when we last. Well, no, they did a car commercial where it's MacGyver. Did you see it?
It was so much fun when it premiered.
It's like 10 minutes long, and it's his daughter. So not only does he now have a son, but he also has a daughter.
Right.
So,
and we don't have to count the new TV shows.
We don't discuss that at all. That's no. But for me, I mean, from what I understand and what the general consensus is, if they do and when they do a new show, if I were in charge, I was talking to the writer-producer, Joe Malozzi.
Nice.
Who, if you don't follow on Twitter, please do. He's great.
Oh, I will. I mean to.
Great writer. He would write things like, you know what would be fun is how they would like start, you know, a script. What if they had superpowers? What if they had this? But again, you had to be true to the science of the universe. Well, we were discussing it, and one of the things we said was they should do a show. I don't care if it's called Stargate Command, and it's back at, you know, Cheyenne Mountain. That way you can do stories with SG-1, Universe, Atlantis, depending on the week or the story arc. That way everybody gets representation, and it pays off for everybody. You know what I mean? Because that way you're still getting, more of what you love, but within that they could also give you new stuff.
Oh, shit. So I am following him, but I just haven't seen, because I'm seeing a lot of what you're posting, and I'm also seeing a lot of just inside various episodes.
Yeah, Baron Destructo is his handle.
Nice. And I am going to check your thing out. I have been downloading episodes while we've been recording.
That's very sweet. I'll be dying to hear what you think.
Well, and it's good that you're going beyond just even a fan film. It's like, and I've had to tell people before, if you're going to do a fan film, you know, you got to be your own thing instead of just recreate scenes from the movie or be a homage. You know, anybody can do that shit.
Exactly. Because now it's a caricature of it.
I was doing fan films for spy and assassin stuff that I loved, and I was finding a logical reason for them to all get together in the same room, go after a mission, and even find actors who I think could portray them. And of course, then lo and behold, there was so many people who didn't understand it. They just only thought, oh, okay, cool, we're doing a parody. I'm like, no, we're not doing a parody. We're doing a fan film. And we're doing it with love. We're doing a what if continuation. And I after being part of a Star Wars spoof that was animated with claymation, I did get to that point. It's like, if I'm going to ever revisit fan films, they got to be animated. And because that's just how you save time. There's just too many fuckers who don't get it. And you say, if you're going to do something, is like, study it up, look at the cliff notes, go on the Wicca. That's where some of the writers of other fiction would go and make sure that what they were writing actually matched up with what other people were saying, you know, what the commentary tracks even is like, hey, well, I want to respect the creator. What did they say in this commentary and how it would have ended initially despite it being cut, that subplot being cut for time. Okay, cool. I'll follow that.
The MacGyver podcast started because the kid who wanted to start it, he only saw I didn't know this at the time, had only seen a couple seasons of MacGyver, but loved MacGyver and wanted to do a podcast about him. Well, he doesn't know enough about it. So he asked me, you want to do this with me? Because I know my stuff. Well, then he bailed on me after a couple episodes, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm alone with, okay, this is mine now. And so from there on, it was just me, and I got my buddy who does the Never Gets Old podcast with me. He comes on, but it's funny how you fall into this stuff, and it's not that I was looking. It was like, I'm going to do a MacGyver podcast. No, but you know what? If I didn't, I wouldn't want anybody else to do it. Does that make sense? Like, I can't necessarily listen to another quote unquote expert podcast about something.
I know, right?
I know if I know too much, not too much. If I know enough about something, I'll either be going, "You're wrong," no, because either the information is wrong or I may just disagree with their opinion, but it drives me nuts. I'm like, no.
Well, and after a while, when I was talking with Will Johnson, similarly named, of the Down Below of B5 podcast, he was talking about, it was like 5 years after he's finished doing, people are still now tuning in and downloading his podcast. He's like, jeez, it took him that long, but he's grateful that they are. But at the same time, like you say, is like, after a while, is like, you got to do something more. That's why we pretty much do a whole franchise coverage, because it's going to become very restrictive if it's only about, episode by episode, movie by movie.
Exactly. Like nail it all, especially with us. I know we could keep talking forever.
Oh, we'll definitely do a Stargate retrospect one that soon. We might even, I'll definitely invite you for when I'm filming, like, we should take on the movies.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and also, when the pandemic's over, hopefully we're going to hear something official about a new series. So it'll be funny to come back and comment on this episode. Go, remember when we did that one episode and we only went up to,
better yet, I'll include you on the top 10 shows by the era. I'll pick some shows, and then
that's fun.
Whatever shows people want to do, and I'm very open-minded. I always do like a lot of shows that were very inspirational, lasted multiple seasons, and aside from a legion of followers, is like, there's a sci-fi show here, there's a horror show here, there's an action and adventure show here, there's a crime drama here. I try to make every side happy. So it's like, there's like, when we get to that, this is always.
I'm happy. I'm happy to help any way I can, but it's funny because I've always been a writer, always songwriter, write my own music and all. But I don't know about you, because you're a creative person too, obviously. I got to the point with this, the way the audio series came about was, one, I knew both shows like the back of my hand. I could tell you, as I'm sure you heard, I'll tell you, oh, is that episode? And all the little minutia just sinks in. So I would submit writing stories because I'd love to be a writer, like a
absolutely
comic book writer. I'm a big, love my comics.
I tell my script writing buddies, how about you just sell an idea instead of insist that everybody look at every acre of your dam?
Well, what would happen was I would submit like comic book ideas or even scripts, and nobody get back to you, or like, here's an idea, and you constantly get rejections.
Exactly. That doesn't fuel you after a while. After a while, it's just like, why bother?
Well, there's the one company that does Stargate books, and they actually said, do me a favor, submit a couple chapters and we'll let you know. I said, great. I already have a couple done. Here's my idea. Here's my outline. And they never got back to me. Well, I got a hold of them. I said, you can give me bad news. If you didn't like it, you could say it. No, right. It's not that we didn't like it. We just never got to read it yet. Well, I waited and I waited. And again, that impatience of mine kicked in.
Tell me something, please.
And I went, you know what? I'm done. I'm done asking permission to be a writer. Oh, wait, I act. I've been acting since I was a kid. So you know what?
Really?
Yeah. And so I was like, I kind of want to dabble in that, but I don't want to go to auditions, and I don't want to play a character that I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like,
so you did like stage plays and
musicals,
short films.
Exactly. All of that, commercials.
I hear you. No.
Well, then, at some point in your life, you make a decision. What are you going to really focus on? Well, I decided music because I had more control over what I performed. But the bug of acting never leaves you. So when I wasn't
music is you still can be heard regardless of whether you get picked up. With a movie, it's a little harder because you can still be at the bottom of that $5 bin and you get tossed out.
And you have to do what somebody else says. I was going to be an artist. I went to school for art, and then found out. Then went, oh, wait a minute. If I'm an artist, I have to write what somebody else tells me to write, not what I want to, or draw what somebody else tells me to draw. So that's out. So then I thought, you know what? I'm sick of asking permission to be a writer. So with this, oh, wait a minute, holy crap, I could do an audio series and continue the stories of characters that I think logically go together.
Right.
Well, and I can act and I can write it. And, and basically, long story short, it's because I'm an impatient son of a bee and want things to be done, well and be done quick and be out for people to hear that's how the audio series came about.
Same deal with this podcast. You're in control.
Right?
You decide when there are no more seasons and you get tired of talking.
And that's the other thing too. I really don't think with the podcast and the audio series and with comic book collecting and with music, you're never going to, or at least I will never be done. I'm never going to go, that's enough.
Yeah, you can even be on hiatus for a year and then come back.
Because nobody's paying me. This is all free. You know what I'm talking about. It's all, I could do what I want when I want, and I don't answer to anybody.
Right. And then you just remind people, hey, I've been talking about some stuff. I would really appreciate some comments on the page.
Well, I'll tell you the best payoff for any of it. Okay, granted, I'm not getting any money, but you know what I'm getting? Nice compliments on stuff that's coming from my soul. Like the fact that they compliment my voice acting or my writing or whatever. I'm like, really? So I'm not alone in a void here. No, we really like what you're doing.
You're acknowledging me, yeah.
I cannot express my gratitude enough to anybody who not only has listened but has bothered to say, "Wow, we love this."
For sure, and I mean, it also makes it easier to team up. You don't have to wait from afar, and. I'm so glad you were able to join on here and actually just lean in on what makes the show tick versus what makes the fans come back to it. Because, I mean, this is a miracle. Most shows that haven't been on syndication, often people are like, I vaguely remember that. It's like, and yet the show has survived. It just, people have always talked about it. It also came out at the right time. People are embracing DVD, and it's like
Do you know that was the first series to actually come out as a box set for a season?
Really? Okay.
That was the very first one because I remember being in the store and going, all right, I'm going to buy these when they come out. I'd never even seen an episode, but I'm going to buy them. And at first they were selling a disc here and a disc there. But then all of a sudden, boom, it's a whole season. And I checked, and they were the very first ones to ever do it.
Damn.
Yeah. It's amazing the little things you forget.
Well, and more or less, I mean, they really did go to town on it. They did not wait for anyone's permission or to do this and that. And MGM gave equal opportunity. It helped that Alliance Atlantis, was also helping out. And, that's definitely where they got a lot of the Canadian talent from. But,
it's funny when you're talking about that. You reminded me of when they were doing the 200th episode. They did a big party for the 200th episode. Yeah. And they had somebody from a representative from MGM or whatever there at the party. And they said, because up until then, for 9 seasons, they didn't know if they were getting another season. They would never end the season on a cliffhanger. It would always wrap up just in case that was the end. They weren't coming back. Mm-hmm. Well, here they are at the 200th episode. They only have a couple more to film for the season. They turned to her and they go, yeah, we're great to have you here. Here's to 200 and many seasons more, right, Jan? Or whatever her name was. And she smiles. She's like, ha, ha, ha. Well, she apparently had already known that they were pulling the plug and didn't tell anybody. So that's why season 10 ends on a cliffhanger, because this was the first season we were sure we were coming back, and now we weren't.
Wow. And see, I hate it when people are just like weasels like that. It's just Come on, we're all drinking punch together. I think you can say something.
Well, granted, she was on film. They were filming that for like a sci-fi special. So when they go, right, Jan? And she's like, good cake. This cake is great. Is that chocolate? Yeah, like she couldn't do anything.
I'm sure they all wish they could silently delete her from that episode. You know?
Honest to God. I remember watching it, and this, again, it was before we knew that they were ending SG-1.
They were part of the Sci-Fi's The Lowdown, where they would
yeah.
the scenes. It was
right
so
before the season began. And they show it, and I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, ooh, she didn't say yes.
There's that, and it was very anticlimactic after you've had, hours of, David Hewlett in character as Rodney saying, hello, showing you around the set.
Yeah.
It was like, that's not how you end an episode.
Well, listen, keep me in mind anywhere down the road for even, I mean, we could shoot the bull about this again sometime, but if anything else you want to check in with me and you need
let me know any other shows you'd love to take down. And
oh geez, you're asking for a list. I will do that. I will send you a instant message thing or an email now that I have your email.
Oh yeah.
And give you the rundown on things that just pop into my head.
Fuck yes.
And if you have any audio commercials, like the 30-second long things, feel free to email.
Promos.
Yeah. Send it to me because I'll use it in the beginning or at the end of any of my 3 shows.
Thank you. Hundreds. Okay.
Hey, my pleasure. That's what Podern. What was it? # Podern Family is all about.
I have been seeing those. I mean, was like, what does that mean? Oh, podcast family. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody was clever.
Well, more or less, we pretty much have labeled the best family show. I can't think of anybody who can't watch this with a family now.
That's not the truth.
And we did the impossible. Hopefully other people can listen in on this as I keep promoting and using different hashtags and, figure out why this show is the most epic show known to mankind. And
exactly.
Because I tried even showing it to my cousins, and they're all into all the DC comic book shows. And I was like, for real? You can get into those and handle all the lesser acting.
If you want to vent sometime about the CW, I've done that on the Never Gets Old podcast. I can go on a rant about that at the drop of a hat. So, yeah. I don't want. Long story short, as a comic book guy, I don't watch those anymore.
That's fine. I mean, because they're trying too hard to appeal to everybody. And
I know.
And he was, I kid you not, I showed him an SG-1 episode and he nitpicked the shit out of it. And I was like, you're kidding. They've subtexted the dialogue. They've shown you an epic battle while moving the story forward, like the better Terminator type movies. They even that's even the seasons where they have those Terminator type villains and you just poo-pooed it. Come on.
I think he went into it knowing that he was going to pick on it.
He's just a kid. I'll just say
there you go. All right. Well, have him listen to this episode and maybe we'll sway him.
Thank you, Mac. You're the Mac.
Hey, thank you, buddy.
Thank you for joining in this epic takedown.
Anytime. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for having me.
Open up the gate.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Peace and love.
The Never Gets Old podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network. Music by Harmony Constant. Some artwork by Joseph Arnold and Jared Brown. Donations can be made to Patreon, to Mac Jackson. Join our group pages on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Never Gets Old Pod. Please subscribe, rate, and review. And remember, stay excited, everyone. The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure. Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.